Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Quite an honor and fun to spread this kind of thing that has developed out of the R2W Council. These drop-ins were kind of an early thing in the pandemic that a few people on the council kind of made something up and volunteered to do it. So all of this was made up. And I said, sure, I can do that. I've got some cameras and some setup and I can move a pen or pencil around. So I hope you enjoy it. It's meant to be open and accessible to kind of all levels. You can use your offhand or your good hand, sitting, standing, any paper, pen, or pencil. And we'll usually focus on some simple techniques. So what I will do is first run through a little bit of a primer that gives us access to the way we'll be drawing and some of the shapes we'll work with, just to establish them so we're all familiar and on the same page. I usually do that on a piece of scrap on the back of a page or in a sketchbook, a little doodle, and then we'll move to a bit longer exercise. And throughout this, we'll do a lot of simultaneous work with our breath, our posture, and kind of our presence here in the moment, which is what I really enjoy about these, is I get 20 to 30 minutes once a week at least to only do this. So to keep it nice and simple and provide ourselves with a space of flow, whatever you have available to you, pen, pencil, sketchbook, we'll just start by making a few little circle-ish things, kind of forming a dot on the page. Nothing special, doesn't have to be round. This can be through slow, even revolutions, something fast and playful, finding how your hands are doing today, how your posture is with the setting. And we'll begin to give this some directionality and repetition that we can use to enter into a space of meditation. So as you start to draw some circles and just feel out where you're at, I'm going to begin to kind of open up a center. This circular space defines place. And as we work with a sequence of them, we can slowly form them around a larger space on the page. Whether that's more circular or amorphous is where you can play and follow with your drawing. But you can begin to see here in the primer part, I'm just wrapping them around, slowly reaching towards kind of generally an enclosing of an open space. In our longer meditation, we'll look at that open center, that forming of some space that we are doing here together and for ourselves, that we can explore and give ourselves that time to play within. A couple more kind of playful, random ones, seeing what you can do with it, or just getting those fingers warmed up a little bit. The speed is totally at your pace. But I'll switch now from my scrap piece to another page. Usually take a couple of breaths just to establish ourselves, make sure we're in a nice, comfortable position where we can be for 20 minutes or so. Taking a breath in doesn't have to be overly deep, but just to where you feel some expansion in your body, and then let it release out at a relaxed pace. Filling up and opening some space, realigning the spine and the shoulders, and then letting them sink into just a place of neutral and natural being. Maybe move a little side to side, work out any kinks on how you might be sitting, and let yourself come to rest in an open posture. And then anywhere on the page, we can begin the same idea, tracking the forming of some of those little circles. And what we'll do is use them as a way to enter into a space of our breathing, into the rhythms of our body. As we draw the first few, we may start to notice a tendency in how we draw. Are we beginning clockwise or counterclockwise? Moving fast or slow? For the first several, just recognizing maybe making small attunements and adjustments as you feel out where you are with the drawing. For myself, I see today I've started kind of at the top of the shape away from me with a counterclockwise rotation. And I'm beginning to feel out, 3 to 5 revolutions to form a circle. All of this can be up to you as we go along, and you may progress at different pace than what I'm doing here. So if your drawing becomes full or you're behind relative to number of circles from where I am, don't worry about it, just keep going at that pace. Once I've loosely formed a circle here, I'm pretty comfortable with the way I'm drawing. I'm just going to form more. You can do them anywhere on the page where it feels comfortable. I think I'm going to just jump off of an existing circle and start forming another, connected but separate, as we now can enter through this action, through the presence of moving the pen or pencil into a rhythm of our breathing, relax into this space. When you're ready for your next initiation of a circle, take a nice full breath in. Find the place you want to begin on the page and let that breath just gently come out as you begin to draw. And if you need to breathe again, do it at whatever pace is comfortable. As you finish that shape, breathe again in to establish some presence of your body and presence of the location of the pen. And as the air gently falls from your lungs, track around in the rhythm that you're finding there, a few revolutions to mark the location. In to engage our core and fill ourselves with replenishing oxygen, and out just to let the body open up that space, release the breath stored within, and begin to find that rhythm where the drawing and the action on the outflow may follow a natural breath, but we always give ourselves a moment to calibrate and establish with a nice in-breath to reposition for the next motion. And we'll follow this rhythm for a few rounds, beginning to look into how we're drawing and finding a greater practice of awareness, mindful attention to this simple action here of forming some centers. So as you breathe in and prepare for a circle, when you begin to let it out, start to track with a gentle counting the number of passes you make. Could be 1, could be 10. For myself, I find an in and a few revolutions, 2, 3, 4, to feel comfortable, but anything for yourself, I'll let you count on your own along with the guidance. And each shape a chance to practice that attention, but with my talking, with the dynamic condition of drawing and listening and breathing. Don't worry if you miss the count. Just try to keep it in your presence of your vision and your attention. As slowly through this engagement with our rhythm, with our breath, and some of that expansion and contraction of our whole body here onto the page, we can find a synchronicity in our own space, that attention inwards to the drawing, deepening with each practiced repetition. The technique will fade out of the foreground as we are less determined in how we make our shape or our mark, and become more attuned and aware to what's happening there on the page. In those revolutions, what do you begin to sense or feel? The finer details of sensation at the tips of the pen or the pencil. Is your paper smooth or rough? Does it glide evenly or build up some resistance as you move around in this dynamic, ever-changing shape? This is a chance for observation, just an awareness of where we are in communication through a medium, here in the act of drawing, the connection between our presence, our sensors and nerves, our muscles engaged to move, the pen, an instrument extending out from the body, the paper, a medium provided with its own character to engage with, to respond to as we learn and look into that character of the page. Here in our repetition, an opening of space for us to center our awareness onto what action we are doing at present. Each shift from the previous shape, letting it go to be there on the page, recorded and now left to exist, the new one, a new opportunity for entering into just that fine moment of action, convergence of our breath, our awareness of motion, our sensors, observance of a physical presence, and the continued growth or output of some space here on the canvas or the page. And as you feel more comfortable with the technique, you can play around with the speed, the pacing, perhaps shortening the amount of revolutions, or slowing down the motion of the pen. Just that feeling out some wiggles of how we engage with the page, our attention deeper inwards to that relationship between ourselves and this output gives us some access to play and open up the territory there with each new moment, a new presence and engagement with that awareness. It's a chance as we've entered into that repetition and consistent space that other things may now begin to creep in to the consciousness. Questions of, does it look right? Where should the next circle go? Observe, maybe witness any chatter that comes into the mind. Let it pass over and breathe into the next breath. If you ever find it frustrating or stifling, or if any fatigue begins to build up through the repetition, you can always recenter with a new inhale, a short break, a re-establishment, And then when you're ready, re-engaging. But now that we've been here for a while, there should be a good number of marks forming around on the page. We can let our eyes come back into the whole space, as they may have become very focused on each individual action. Maybe blink them a few times. You can continue to move and draw with those closing and opening of the eyes. Just finding position and letting the hand follow what you've practiced for it to do. With that refreshing of the vision, our strong primary sense, you may see pattern or figure. It may prompt interest in entering new spaces. And let that guide you for a moment as we fill out just a couple of more circles here to really establish that territory of many centers, opening, fluid, a new space for us to explore. And now that something is established, I like to take some time with these. We've entered a nice place of hopefully relaxation and engagement to find other things to explore. Perhaps to take individual moments and just reach them out into the space. Here I'm extending just some simple lines from any particular circle that might draw my eye, letting them softly scan over it. Perhaps some are larger or more embedded with more revolutions, higher tone on the page. And extending out some movement from those. We've opened up all this space in and around and between. And how can they reach through that space? Establish a little more presence in their surrounding, but respect the neighboring conditions, create a bit of dialogue, and giving ourselves a chance to scan through, let that visual cortex guide our hand around the page, and just play with a few easy, quick marks of extension. The territory here open for us to explore, to fill out and establish a little bit more space, just like our breathing in between us and the page. Each re-engagement with the now found moment from our past practice, a chance to explore something new, the interaction between circles, space around, space within. And give a couple moments more attention to our breath before we'll enter into a couple minutes of quiet drawing in our own time. So as you engage with the next action of drawing, again, breathe in. And whether you're drawing a line or a circle, breathe out at the pace of marking the page. This will really slow us down for just a couple moments. Breathe in to find location with the pen, and out slowly as you draw. Reoxygenation in, presence out, action. in to fill and establish, out to explore. A couple of more at your own pace. The breaths don't need to be deep, just something that brings presence and awareness to your rhythms and expanding and contracting of the core that ties your inner presence with your outer expression. And we should have a pretty good density of marks, circles, lines, whatever else may form on the page. And within this, what can we find? How can we move through this territory as a visitor, an observer, a pen or pencil on a little exploratory journey that can continue with the techniques? What I see for myself as an opportunity and encourage is to find some paths from outside and then move them through the new maze of opened spaces and see where they might travel and end up. At this point, we'll just have a few minutes where it's quiet and you spend some time with your drawing and see where you might want to take it, now that you're here and engaged in its presence. And since I've got a larger piece of paper here and it's beginning to fill up, we're probably reaching towards the end of that time of the practice. It's important, after putting in some work, to find your attention, to engage in a space of mindfulness through action, to have that little silence, that time to play and just explore. Maybe it's time to rest and recover, but we're putting in some work there in the beginning, whether it feels like it or not. We want to let that work sink in and offer back something to us. So as we come towards the end of the exercise, you continue to draw if you found something you're interested in, or begin to wind down and put down the pen or pencil to let the eyes take in the whole space that you may have there. It may look wildly different than what you see on mine, or maybe it's kind of the same. We'll never know. And then take a few deep breaths, and with them bring into your mind some attention to gratitude for yourself, having some time to practice this. Perhaps some curiosity in what might have expressed out on the paper. And as we do that, give our hands a little attention and thank them for moving, for practicing and exercising. Maybe extend them out to let them stretch and then softly relax. Turn them back and forth a couple of times. Wiggle the fingers just to work out any kinks as we may have sat for that whole time in a very singular position. Fill the lungs like we began and let the body expand into some space around you. And on the breath out, just wiggling a bit to sit back into a neutral, comfortable position. Observe and be aware of any kinks, as again, it's easy to over-focus and forget to move around and stretch and bring it back with a couple of breaths in and out to relax everything back into our space. Notice some smells and sounds of the breath and enter back into the room around us. And that's most of the practice. I've actually only done this in person a couple of times, and so I've never really see what people do, which is, I think, kind of interesting. It's everyone's own expression, own chance. I put mine away in a drawer or turn the paper over and use the back for something else after each exercise. But I think it is important to maybe unpack or just have some time with how giving yourself that space to practice your mindfulness, but also open up some creativity may make you feel or what exposed there on the page for you. So if you'd like to share or have any thoughts, I think we'll open up the floor to see how it went for you.